reason I brought my show and tell and this piece in, particular piece in, Diane was looking for an article for the newsletter, and I had recently had a eureka moment. I used to use a Lazy Susan type turner, and I'd have to turn it by hand and spray, and it worked all right, but I could never get really a nice finish on it. And then the light bulb went on, and I thought an old record player would really alleviate a lot of the issues that I was having, and it really did. To turning it on at 33 RPMs, I could maintain the spray the right distance, and what I did, I left the unit running after I sprayed it, and it gave me dividends that I wasn't expecting. The evaporation process was really smooth, and the finish was really smooth. Much more than I'd ever been able to accomplish before. And that's a piece of red maple that I bleached with hydrogen peroxide and bleach and blah blah blah. And because the red maple really didn't have much character to it. And the reason I used the red, people say, why did you use the red maple? I used the red maple because I wanted to again extend my theory with using pledge to make things harder. And the red maple isn't a hard wood, but the pledge really allowed me to push this thing a little bit further. And I have 2 more projects that are coming to conclusion that push the envelope just a little bit more. I wish I could make this thing sound nearly as complicated. That's what Dave did. But it's not. It's actually very simple. And for people that are here for the first time, this is placed on the lathe in this manner. And this would be basically a ball with 3 rings. And then all you have to do is decide how many rings you want. 3 rings. So if I want to have 3 stems on each one, I need 9. So I go every 3rd one. I bring the stem up. This section here. Maybe I could.
Here, I'll just come around.
Yeah, that's good. So from here to here, this would be solid wood all the way around in the ring. So you just move that amount of wood, and of course the wood is in behind it. I can still continue. So I have the first one, the second one, the third one. So each one goes up to the next ring, and then you just remove the wood that's in between. It doesn't have to be there. But so the things I wanted to bring it in for, the reasons why were the pledge. It really does make a difference. It really hardens the wood. The fact that I was able to bleach it even using the pledge was another bonus. And yeah, the turntable was the main reason why I wanted to bring it in. But yeah, anyhow, I've done enough.
Compound, you've got your red maple, you turn it to the bulb and the 3 rings. Is that when you soak it with your pledge? Or do you brush the pledge on, or how and when do you apply it?
I think I heard you. I'm going to answer the question that I heard, okay?
Go for it.
It might not be the question you asked, but it's the question I heard. Yeah, you're asking when I put the pledge onto it? Yeah, it's a good question, actually. What I've learned through experiment is when I get it down to a certain thickness, I would apply the pledge. I would let it soak in. I would wait maybe 10 minutes. Anywhere where it didn't soak in, I would take a paper towel and remove it. You don't want it to bead up on the surface. Then I would bring the work down thinner, and then I would go through the process again. I would put the pledge back on again.
Oh, each layer. Okay.
And then I would, if it didn't, again, wherever it beads up, I would remove it with a paper towel to get it off. The projects I'm doing now, one is the spider's web, and that's exactly what I've done with that. It started at quite a bit larger because I wasn't sure how it was going to work out. I did make a mistake in choosing the apple wood. It's strong wood, but apple wood always has flaws in the core, and it's fine. It's working fine, but it's in hindsight I would have never done it. But I've got so much time into this that it's going to be completed. It's nearly completed. The other thing that I tried, I had another piece. It's pistachio wood, and I was using that process, but it still felt very frail. And I thought it's just too frail to work with. It's going to just break. So rather than just give up on it, I soaked it in the pledge, and then I took it out, and I dabbed off where it didn't go in right away, and I left it for 30 days. This is really, really, I can work with this with a lot of confidence that it's not going to break on me. So it's almost like cement, I think, where it's got to cure over a period of time. The surface does harden right away, like within 24 hours, but it wasn't enough for me to do what I wanted to do comfortably. I could probably do it, and I would have a Michael Hasselhoff design opportunity, I'm sure. But anyhow, no, that's a good question, and it's yeah, there's other people that have emailed me with pictures of wood and problems that they're having or concerns, and it's the pledge really, it's a blessing for things I do.
The pledge is that the pledge furniture wax?
Sorry?
Floor.
It used to be called Future.
Okay.
Yeah, and Johnson & Johnson bought Future because they wanted the formula.
Where do you get yours? Because we
Superstore.
What do you?
Superstore.
Yeah, most.
Walmart.
Does it say it has acrylic?
Yes, it'll say acrylic on it.
Well,
It won't say Future anymore. They used to say with Future for a number of years, and then they dropped it. But I've said this before, and I'll say it quickly again. I did keep the original one that was actually Future. I kept some of it. And when they brought out the different version, I compared the two. And the results I found for what I'm doing, it's identical. So they still use the formula, they just dropped the fact that it's not, they didn't make it.
well, the stuff down the valley all has Restore on the bottle.
What's that?
Restore the floor, it doesn't say acrylic,
It's made by Johnson.
Oh,
it's pledge.
yeah, that's a good point. The stuff I have, it's definitely acrylic.
And you get it from the Superstore.
I get it from Home Hardware.
But they have it just in the cleaning supplies area at Superstore.
Yeah, but all this, I've been into like 20 different places.
Yeah.
And it's all the Restore stuff, not a word of acrylic anywhere on it.
They might not put the word acrylic
Yeah.
on it anymore.
Are you
Dawn?
done? Are you done or no?
Dawn,
Yeah,
do you have any vacuum equipment?
any
Vacuum.
vacuum equipment?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do, that's a good point. I have dust collectors on every.
No, I mean, some people have used vacuum, so you put the wood in
Oh,
and draw. So I mean, one of the things I found when using that is it doesn't seem to soak in very far.
Pressure treat it is what you want to do.
And so
Vacuum
then you turn or sand off a 32nd of an inch, and then you got to treat again. But some people, for embedding stuff in wood, put the wood inside a vacuum container, suck out the air, and then the wood is sitting in some pledge or something, or sorry, some Future, or some other finish or whatever. and then you let the pressure in, and the stuff is forced further into the wood. So essentially a pressure treating thing. So I wonder if you had something like that, whether or not you'd get, you know, more stuff in, and you'd probably have to let it sit for a couple days after you did that. But you might not have to go back and apply it every 32nd or 64th of an inch.
Yeah, I haven't had to apply it as often as that.
Okay.
And the more I can spalt it with, the softer the material. It's more like a blotter. It'll just like suck it up. And you might have to go over that same area 5 or 6 times. But once you've done it, I forget who was telling me this.
It's right there. That area here, this was a piece of maple burl, and it sat out back of somebody's house forever, or a birch rather, and I went up and we cut it up. When I put it on the lathe, most of the wood was hard as a rock, but there were places in it that were punky. Just that there went from this turning fine to that flying right off. Wouldn't even stay on the lathe. If you touched it, it just went like as if you were touching a sponge. So you throw it away. So the fun was going into this. So I took it off the lathe. I just didn't want to do it anymore. I hadn't done the inside. I was going to go on to something else. But as I took it off, I said, I'm going to do the pledge thing, because I had a cedar burl, and it was the worst piece of wood I ever had in my life, and the guy would not give up. I had to turn the bolt out of this thing. So we emailed Don back and forth a couple of times on that. He sent me his technique, and I wound up getting an absolutely gorgeous bowl out of that thing. The colors were fantastic, and it hardened right up. So anyway, when I took this one off, I did the pledge thing, and you mentioned today, and this little guy was saying, pick me, and I put that on the lathe, and that whole thing just turned as simple and nice as anything. So that went there, so being so spongy you couldn't even use it, to drop dead gorgeous. It just looks great. And there were some pieces on the inside as well that were the same thing like there. So it's not hard to use, and it does just want to look at this finish on that.
So are you actually immersing it in a bucket of pledge, or
No,
just
just took it. I take
Use a sponge.
I took a Bay-Cell container with a little sponge in it. Don mentioned in his thing that he sent me that he keeps the sponge wet in that container, an airtight container. So I could go home now and just open that thing up and use it on something else. Wipe it on, and then take off the area that pools on it. And the curing was, I hadn't done that on the cedar burl, but I did it on this one without even thinking about it. I just didn't want to do it. And but when I come back to that, even the birch and everything turned better than it had before. It just turned, there's not a, I don't think, a scratch mark on that thing anywhere. So it's just, really did a nice job.
If you're going to try it, what I would recommend you do, like if it's, say, a spalted wood or something like that, what I do with it, I turn it down to maybe at least an eighth of an inch thicker on the outside, and I finish the outside. And then when you put the pledge on it, it'll harden it, but you've already got a whole lot of tear out. So if you go down even closer than an eighth of an inch, you're going to be still chasing the tear out. So you have to stop a little bit early, finish the outside completely, and then do the inside. And then you by doing the outside, you know how much wood you have to leave, and you do the same thing on the inside. But the same thing, you just take a sponge, soak it in, but if it beads up, just dab it off with a paper towel. And that's why, to answer your question, Joe, like the acrylic must still be in it, because it's the acrylic that changes the colors. It brings out blues and reds and greens that normally you wouldn't see. Even with oil, you won't see it. But the acrylic, anyhow, I've gabbed on enough.
I've got an article in my computer on pledge and all that stuff, because Don was talking about it. If anybody wants a copy of this thing, send a PDF, I'll email it to them. Just send me an email, I'll return it back to you and send you this thing.
Can you put it on the website?
I don't know if I can or not. There's copyrights and all the rest of that nonsense. Well, you just wanna send me an email, just send it back. Dave wants to put my address on the board, there's jolivetn@yahoo.ca. It's probably in the newsletter somewhere. But, JOLIVETN@yahoo.ca. But you want to just send me a note and just remind me what it's about, and I'll send you the file back, and that's it.
Okay, Harold, you're up.
I had 3 pieces. I haven't done the show and tell for a long time. Basically, I like working with figured wood, whether it's spalded wood or whether it's a burl or crotch wood or whatever. I'd never heard the word chatoyancy until I came to the, way back when I first came to the first meeting. I think, hey, that's pretty cool. And that's a bowl that is just a prime example. That's just fantastic. That was from the same donor that I got this other wood. I did turn this one a little early. It was about 12%, and I turned the outside of the bowl and turned the inside when I come. But I hadn't taken the tenon off the bottom. When I come back the next morning, it had warped, and so there was quite a little warp in it. And I think if I turned that back down to as thin as I normally would put it, I would have run out of room on it, and I didn't want to risk that. So I had to go through a little bit of a procedure. The top had already warped, so it wouldn't work very well in the cold jaws. Anyway, I solved the problem, but it had some beautiful figure in it, birch. And then I mentioned spalded maple. These are little things I do sometimes at Christmas time, and it's just a little lidded jar for a mason jar. So they screw on like that, and you can put anything in the mason jars.
Well, you can actually try to smile.
It's one of those things, the amount of time you put in it versus what you get at it when you sell it. It's not something that I rush to do, but people that have bought them before come back and want 6 of them. That's part of 6 that I'm doing for somebody.
Now that Christmas is over, I made my first birdhouse during the Christmas week. Since then, in the last 3 weeks, I've probably made 14 of them. I couldn't find any birds. I went everywhere looking for the little bird. Maple, and the eyes are toothpick.
Okay, a little closer to you.
Okay.
I like the bird.
Because the bird is so tiny, and trying to get both your face and the
Yes.
bird.
One thing when you're turning the head of the bird is make sure that all your chips are off the floor. I dropped that head, and it took me 20 minutes to find it.
It's been quicker to make it over almost.
Oh, that's true. This one here is just the opposite. It's maple with the mahogany wings, and it's got a little bit of the burning to give the feathers. And this one here is cherry burl, the bird. The first one I tried, it kind of flew apart on me because the burl was really soft. Well, that was it, yeah.
You can use thin CA glue too as a good stabilizer for small things.
Yeah.
Oh, it works great.
How did you attach the bird's head to the body?
Oh, just a brad.
Oh.
Just cut it off, brass brads.
If it's all of it's one piece.
Don could have done it one piece.
Yeah, well, I'm not that good yet.
Beehives. So I was just fooling around after Christmas, just doing some prototypes of various shapes of honey dippers. Just surface area to allow the honey to stick to it and eventually drip off he's settled on apparently wanting more of these. So I think his plan is I'm going to turn them for him. He's going to give them away with the jars of honey that he sells to his customers. His plan, yeah, exactly.
That's a good plan.
It's called OPM.
It does make beautiful turnings.
Can you hold up the camera? Yeah, swap the camera, that was terrified.
So anyway, if anyone else wants to try that wood, I'd give it a try, but definitely use the pledge on it.